Hi, my name is Jimmy Williams with NFL Draft Diamonds, and I have another diamond in the rough for you today. His name is Jake Richardson. He's an edge rusher out of Grandview University. Nice to meet you, sir.
Appreciate you for having me.
So, interestingly enough, I mean, I know some people may not know about Grandview too much because it's an NAIA school, but dude, to be quite honest with you, there has been a lot of great talent coming out of Grandview these days, and the fact that you were amongst that great program is certainly awesome. But before we get to talking about them and everything else, set the stage for us. Tell me where you're from and talk about your journey a bit.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm originally from Kansas City, and I was there until my sophomore year of high school. And then from there, I went to a prep school in Minneapolis called Minnehaha Academy. You probably know of a few famous people that came out of there in the recent years. But then from there, went to the University of South Dakota, went there for the last few years. And then, my D1 clock ran out, and I realized that I had eligibility with NAIA. And so I went to Grandview and I finished up at Grandview and had a really, really nice time winning some football games there.
Gotcha. Let's take a step back and I guess fill in a little bit of those blanks. You said that you're originally from the Kansas City area, correct?
Yes, sir. Yes,
So
sir.
is it Kansas City, Kansas, or Kansas City, Missouri? Because I know it's like kind of borderline.
Yeah, so I'm from the Kansas side for sure. Kansas City, Kansas, KCK all day.
All right. I got to double check because I mean, again, some people, it's like it's a border war. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
Um,
Yeah, gotta be on
but
the
Jake, talk to me about growing up in that Kansas City area and playing at your high school. I don't know what positions you played at that stage in your life, and even if you played any other sports, I want to know. So, talk to me about all that stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Growing up in Kansas City, man, it was tough, man. It's a very rough place. My church was actually on the Missouri side on Truce, and if you ask anybody who's from that area, it's a rough area to be in. And me coming from Wyandotte, it was no better. So growing up, it was kind of tough, but my parents made sure, we were kind of separated from that type of lifestyle. Honestly, my freshman year, I didn't even play football. So I just played strictly basketball, which a lot of people don't even know about that. Because at the time I was solely focused on basketball. I thought I was going to be a basketball player. I was super skinny, super scrawny. And then I hit the weight room my sophomore year. And then next thing I know, I was like 220, and just bulked up out of nowhere. And then the coach from the football team was like, "Hey, I ever thought about playing football?" I was like, "No, not playing football. That's not me." And then I came out to a practice. Next thing I know, I'm putting pads on again, and then ended up being state leader in sacks and tackles for loss, and the rest was history.
Interesting. So, thought you were going to be a big basketball guy, huh?
Yeah, yeah. So I think that's where a lot of the quickness come from because naturally, got to have fast twitch muscles playing basketball. So it transferred over pretty well.
Sure. And of course, you stop growing. And so, like, you're obviously not like these 6'8", like,
Right.
whatever basketball players. So, what is your current height and weight these days, if you don't mind me
Yep.
asking?
Yep. So technically I'm 6'2" and 5/8, but I just say 6'3" and round it up because it just sounds better. But 6'2" and 5/8, and then I'm 260 on a good day. Typically play and consistently is about like 257, but 260 on a good day though.
Gotcha. So I had introduced you as an edge rusher, which honestly, with your size in most systems, you would likely play a Sam linebacker. Is that about right? Is that kind of how you see yourself transitioning?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, actually, when I was at South Dakota, I was kind of all over that linebacker room. So I would play stand-up edge or jack linebacker, however you would, call it in the system. But I would sometimes play Sam or Mike or Will. So I was literally all over that linebacker room. So honestly, I feel like I'm one of those guys kind of like positionless just because I am so versatile with my style of play.
Interesting. So Jake will just call you an athlete, wherever they have a spot for you. I mean, dude, if it's on offense, we'll throw you on offense, make you a fullback or something for
I'm
play.
with,
So
I'm with. I used to play tight end.
hey, that'll work. I mean, those positions do open up occasionally. So, um, Jake, obviously your journey, again, you said started at South Dakota, and then like you said, I mean, kind of moved around a lot there. And then of course ended up at Grandview with your last stop in college ball. So give me a sense for the difference between those two defenses, if you don't mind. I mean, obviously, completely different programs, completely different everything. But talk about like those defenses, and then of course how you were utilized in both of them.
Yeah, for sure. So honestly, before I even say this, you might not even believe me. But the defensive coordinator who was at the University of South Dakota had came from Grandview. So the defenses were the exact same. So I was in the same exact scheme, same exact defense. The only thing is, I think I would say when I was at Grandview, I was more of a true edge rusher and not dropping back in coverage as much. Like I still would occasionally, but I wasn't like all over the field like I was at SD. Like it was more like, hand in the dirt, edge rushing type of stuff. But for the most part, those defenses were pretty much the same, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I had figured, what you were saying. I mean, obviously at the NAIA level, you can be your size and have a whole lot more flexibility as to how you're used out there. You can be that hand in the dirt edge rusher, which you were obviously at the Division I level with South Dakota. Um, I don't know. There's a lot that they could have done with you, ultimately. So, but when you look at yourself and what you bring to the table, what do you feel separates you from other people? Can you talk through at least a couple of your better attributes?
Yeah, for sure. Like I said earlier, I feel like I'm one of those guys that I don't have a set position. Like I said, I can play Mike, Will, Sam, or rush off the edge, drop in coverage. I feel I can do it all. Not only that, but I'm a special teams guy. And I feel like that's another thing that really sets me apart is a lot of guys that play defense only want to play defense and they don't want to be on special teams. I'm one of those guys that I want to run down on the field and headhunt as well. So I feel like those two things for me is definitely what's going to stick me out from the rest of the pack for sure.
Interesting. So a special teams guy willing to take that on head on. So like that. Just since it's in my brain right now, have you watched some of the XFL and kind of how they're doing their special team kickoffs and stuff? I mean, where they all start at the same line? I mean, you feel like that's something you're comfortable with? I mean, how do you like that setup?
Oh man, I'm one of those guys. I'm a defensive guy, so I'm kind of crazy. I love contact, so I love it. I love it. It is interesting though how they do their kickoffs. I know you can't run or cross the line until the runner has possession of the football. So that is a little interesting, but it's football at the end of the day. Run
Well, I
down.
mean, you would just have to retrain your mind because, I mean, for the longest time, I mean, having this, being right next to the kicker, like when he kicks the ball versus like how they're doing it in that league. And Lord only knows, man, that may one day end up in the NFL as well. So, I mean, we'll see how that develops. But sorry, I was just kind of somewhat curious. So apologize for the sidetrack there. Um, talk to me for a little bit about, I don't know, how you have I guess made yourself better over the years. And let's first kind of turn our attention to the film room. When you watch film, how do you use your time in the film room in order to make yourself better? What are you looking at? Give me some idea as to how that's developed since you came out of high school in Kansas City.
Yeah, for sure. I know when I first got to college, not gonna lie to you, I was one of those guys that would like only look for like highlight type of plays when it comes to film. And then over the years, having different coaches, and then having different pass rush supplements and things like that, actually learning how to watch film actually taught me a lot. And now I'm to the point now where whenever I am watching film on a particular opponent, I'm looking at my pre-snap reads first and foremost. So what that means is when the offensive lineman gets down, or if he's in a 2-point, I'm looking at his shoulders, I'm looking at his hand placement, I'm looking at his knees, his foot, if it's cocked in or not, because all of those things will indicate what he's going to do when the ball snaps. And I'm not going to lie, like at the NAIA level, a lot of those offensive linemen, they give away their reads all the time. So it was easy to know what was going to come before it even happened. So when you're a student of the game like that, naturally you play a lot faster than a lot of guys. And a lot of guys will ask me like, bro, how'd you know that was going to happen? And it's like, bro, like I just watch film, you know. So it's definitely lovely to make plays off of things that you know is going to happen. So I think that's what's improved for me watching film.
Great. Kind of along those same lines, I do want to kind of get a similar reaction to how you have developed in the weight room. Of course, you were talking about like during your high school years, being that, lanky kid, and then eventually growing into yourself. And then, of course, once you get to college, I mean, you have to grow into your college self. So, how had that developed since you came in and got yourself in the weight room? How has that developed over the years?
Yeah. So when I was in high school, I'm not gonna lie, I was one of those guys that used to work out a lot, but my diet was terrible. It's funny because I want to say my sophomore or junior year, I used to work at Hardee's, and so I used to eat Hardee's like all the time. So even though I worked out a lot, I ate fast food nonstop. So that didn't help whatsoever. So transitioning into college, and actually being on a dietary program and having a nutritionist that tells you what you're supposed to be putting into your body, whether it's a protein shake or different proteins and things like that. It helped change my body drastically, super quickly, just because the things that I was eating before college was just completely terrible. So I think that's what changed the most for me was that diet.
Yeah, and I mean, dude, when you're a teenager, you can get away with a lot of that stuff.
Right, right.
I mean, really, I mean, our metabolisms are so like outrageous when we're teenagers that we could eat like a at least a large pizza and then nachos and wings and all this other crap. But yeah, I mean, hey, I mean, if you're working at Hardee's, if you're getting free food, I mean, it's going to be it's going to be a no-brainer, man. It's going to be hard not to test the product. So I mean,
Exactly.
I get you. Obviously, you've developed into this player who, yeah, obviously you're pursuing the next level. I'm assuming you've had a lot of great moments, memories throughout your college years. When you think about your time in college, um, tell me some of those things that you're going to remember the most. Like, is there a play? Is there a game? Talk about one of those things for me.
Yeah, for sure. I think the thing that comes to not in my mind off rip would be when we had played South Dakota State my junior year. And up until this point, we hadn't beaten them in over a decade, from what I was told. And we had Chris Streveler, who was our quarterback there, and he never beat them when he was there. And that whole week leading up until that game, my daughter was born. I want to say either that Monday or Tuesday. So the whole week was crazy. And then also with that, we had a Germany team, like their coaching staff. They came in and watched us practice for the whole week, take notes on, how we practice and everything. So again, that whole week was just crazy. And then not only did we win that game, but I also had a really good game. I think I had like a sack, a fumble recovery, a couple of TFLs that game. So it was a pretty good game. So again, just the whole week how that transpired was just great. Like my daughter being born, winning the game, having a great game, and then also showing out in front of the Germany coaches. It was a very memorable time for sure.
Awesome. Well, I mean, obviously, South Dakota State, excellent program in their own right. I know that's hard to hear from a South Dakota guy, but I mean, it is. They are, obviously coming off a national championship themselves. But you yourself, I mean, you got yourself to a point there with Grandview, which Grandview's a good program, man. I mean, those guys are in the national championship scene themselves. I mean, Talk about those guys that you are really mixing it up with at that stage. I mean, are there some guys that everybody needs to know that are playing at Grandview? I guess next year and onward.
Yeah, honestly, I'm not gonna lie to you. Grandview, even though it's an NAIA program, and I know a lot of guys when they hear NAIA, it's like, oh, it's not great football. But honestly, bro, it's a lot of great talent at that school. And I will honestly pay attention to everybody that's on that roster. Most definitely, there's a lot of guys that's transferred in there from D1, D2. So it's not just one particular person that's like, hey, you have to watch this guy. Like the whole roster, you have to be cautious of just because there's threats on offense, there's threats on defense, and even like the special teams units are amazing. Like our kicker, I think he was like a 4-time All-American, I want to say. So like literally like all around, everybody is pretty good. The biggest difference that I've noticed though from playing D1 to NAIA naturally is the size. Like guys at NAIA aren't that big compared to D1, but the effort I feel like is at a much higher level because they know, in order to compete, they have to give more. And so it's some really good talent at that school, man.
Yeah, I mean, I have known a few guys, coming out of there. Um, it escapes me right now, but there's a guy who is actually on an NFL roster right now, and I'm trying to remember what his name is. He was a defensive back.
Yeah, Flo. He with the Colts.
Yeah,
He's actually on the all I think all
it's like an all rookie team or something.
all rookie team. Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. Well, I mean, hey, we'll see how Grandview develops next year as well. Um, do want to take just a brief moment because we're kind of getting late on time, but a brief moment. Tell me just one quick thing about yourself that you feel people need to know about, Jake Richardson.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like with myself, I'm one of those guys, I'm a huge teddy bear. And what I mean by that is, even though on the field, I'm a big, angry, smash everybody in the mouth type of guy, off the field, coolest guy you'll probably meet. You know what I'm saying? I always have a smile on my face, always joking around with people. You know what I'm saying? I'm a person that's just going to always have a great time. You'll never catch me down, hanging my head. I'm just always in good spirit, man. So that's one thing that everybody needs to know about me.
Awesome. Great to hear. Great to hear. At this stage, I kind of want to wrap up our time. It has been fun getting to talk to you and hear your journey. But as we wrap up, I want to give you the last word, and I want you to talk to all these scouts, tell them what they would be missing out on if they didn't take a chance on you, why they need to bring you into their program. So go ahead and hit them with your pitch.
Yeah, for sure. Like I said earlier, man, I'm not just a defensive guy. I'm going to be a guy that's going to run down, play smash hard football on special teams for you, whether it's on punt, punt block, kickoff, kick return, whatever it is. I'm one of those guys that I pride myself in special teams. Not only that, but I'm a guy that's always going to be first in the weight room or even meeting room and the last one to leave. I'm always a guy that's going to be asking questions. I'm not a guy that's just going to be like, okay, got it, and I don't know what's going on. If I don't understand something, I'm going to make sure I actually understand it. And then lastly, I'm one of those guys where you don't have to keep repeating things too in order for me to get it. Like if you draw it up on the board one time, I'll be out at walkthrough executing it at a high level. So I think all those things are going to work in my favor for the next level.
Great. Well, Jake, do wish you very best of luck in this process. I mean, I know you're working out right now, you're training hard for your opportunity, and you're ready for that, once a team is uh going to be giving you that opportunity. So, um best of luck, okay?
Thank you. Appreciate you.
All right, Jake Richardson, edge rusher, Grandview.
Appreciate
Thanks.
it.